So when you first open the page, I really like this. It's got this Red X on lined paper on this inner dust jacket, and it reminds me of a school notebook. We open up your notebook and you have that lined paper. So that's pretty funny. Also, right away, I'm not a fan of this new like matte paper feel that they're doing. It feels cheaper more than the glossy paper that you're normally used to. It does help, keep fingerprints off of it, and it's probably a lot easier for them to print money-wise, which means they can make more books for us to read. I just personally don't like the feeling of it. Okay, so when the scene opens up, we have some mystery kid buying something from somebody else. And I don't want to be the person to go to like drug deal right away, but so we don't know who it is. It could be any of them. The group of kids on this boat, and I don't know, it just seems like the Titans were always such a close-knit group. That's why we love them, right? But now there's just so many. And we were so attached to the regular Titans, and now there's just so many to where they can throw hundreds. They have hundreds and hundreds. It just doesn't feel the same when you have like hundreds of Titans, newbies all the time that stick around for like a week, rather than the handful of people that we've known and watched grow for years. So I don't know how attached I can become to these people. So the biggest debate was that picture in the beginning. You have Red X sitting on a desk, and it's like, okay, everybody knows that's got to be Dick, right? Because this debate went on for a while. Who is it? Because it's sort of directly related to the Titan show, where he was Red X for a little while when he went off the chain. But I feel also like that's too obvious to be him, so it probably is not. When they're waiting to greet them, I love this shot. It's like the point of view of kids looking up at their idols. And don't get me wrong, that would totally be me anyway. That's funny too. I laugh at Nightwing's greeting, oh, too dark for kids? And they're so awkward on the podium. You can tell this is their first time. I just want to slide down and disappear. So they start, of course, Dick's teaching combat, or self-defense, should we say. And his joke, welcome to Defense Against the Dark Arts, no one laughed. I'm surprised. I'm laughing my ass off over here. And he's like, oh, you're too young for that. Just reminding us all that Harry Potter is over 20 years old. Can you believe that? And here we have this recurring joke of like this trend going on where they start with like, oh, this is problematic. I don't want to hear that kind of stuff, man. It's just a joke. Let's move on. And apparently Red X is dead. Are they going to explain how that happened? Because apparently that's wiped from my memory. And the time I know might be a different time than the one I know according to DC. So can we have some backstory on that, please? I also like how he's like, oh, I'm going to show you a demo. Like he can just beat up a hologram until it goes away. Because even though Dick sounds kind of naggy here, he's actually making an excellent point. That when people put on a mask, it changes their whole demeanor. Not only, its most basic purpose is to hide your identity, yes, but at the same time, I always thought of it as like somebody who's hiding behind a computer when they're making tough comments. You feel more confident because nobody knows who you are. You can feel like a whole different person because nobody knows who you are. And that's the whole baseline of it. You can easily lose yourself in the confidence that your actions will have no consequences if nobody knows who you are anyway to punish you for them. So I feel like he's actually making a really important statement here about the responsibility that comes with wearing a mask. And Nightwing old? What? Like, I feel bad in his defense. How old is old to these kids? But it's funny because you remember being a kid when you thought like everybody like 25 and older was mega old. Oh, and see, they flash to the Teen Titans actually fighting Clock King, I believe. And this is what I mean when I say there are just way too many Titans now. You never know who's on the roster at any given time. Like, it could change from week to week. And I get that they're going for, like, everybody's included or whatnot, but I would still prefer quality over quantity. And we're getting to know a little bit about what each of them teach. Like, obviously, Dick is teaching self-defense. Then you have Cyborg, who is teaching home ec, because Beast Boy thought it would be funny to put him as that, but also I think he would be pretty good at it. And you have Donna, who is the faculty advisor, and she'd be good at that too. She was always the one listening to people's problems and trying to help them solve it, so that's good. I did like that they named a school in honor of Roy, because that's pretty sweet. They even have a statue of him. They're celebrating Nightwing's birthday, which doesn't help his old case, but it's nice to see that the Titans still can celebrate each other's special occasions, even if the kids are a little cringed out by it. So he was gifted the Red X mask for his birthday from an anonymous gifter, of course, and this is troublesome because they thought all this was in the past. Apparently, somebody's bringing it up again on purpose, and that's making them uncomfortable. Nightwing here is clearly worried about how the students see him, and Donna is concerned about this continuing. She's like, you need to shut this down now. Lights out at 9? Jeez, babies go to bed at 9. Maybe Dick is an old man. Starfire, this is why she's my favorite. No, but I do love that they, these two kind of represent a healthy relationship. So moving on into the next issue, we have Red X, who is hunting down a woman in a wheelchair. To start with, you're not very bad if you have to attack someone in a wheelchair, are you? Don't even get me started on the rage that makes me feel, but I guess that just emphasizes his evilness. Except on the opposite end, she's kind of goading him like, oh, if you're going to kill me, just hurry up and do it then. And then he kind of hesitates. It seems like he doesn't really want to kill her. So I'm thinking of somebody who's not really a killer, possibly a kid. It seems to imply that it's that brick kid from before, but he could just be a red herring. The kids are enjoying a field day, just playing around with their powers and working out. Cyborg's overseeing it, of course. And here we have another Speed Force user, which I guess those are just everywhere now, even though that used to be a special thing. So I'm guessing they're trying to put intrigue on this Matt Price kid because he doesn't know who he is or where he came from, and he's kind of a jerk to Cyborg, saying that he don't need to fight because he's strong enough to beat anyone. And he's playing this weird chess. It makes me wonder because in the beginning they were talking about how many applicants applied but only a few were selected. Because if that's so, then what is this kid's power? It seems like his mind is his power, but I'm sure he didn't advertise that on the applications. I don't think that's something they would have been like, oh yeah, we want him. So no comment here, but with these two being my favorite couple, I'm glad to see them getting some screen time. And then, of course, he does mention Barbara, which throws a wrench in the day's plans, because he's going back to Bloodhaven for a while. It seems kind of random out of the blue, and Corey's upset, and I don't blame her for that. He's kind of got a big responsibility here to teach these kids. It also spurred some headlines in the comic news about, like, oh, are they trying to set up a love triangle again? They just can't help but bait on that. And he calls him straight up by his name in front of everyone. Despite how often Batman's yelling, oh, code names in the film. Nobody heard this? So I like how he reminds him, like, hey, bro, I got a code name. But this joke, though, what is this joke? Wait, Matt leaves. I'm guessing it's going to be a setup for something that's going to happen while he's gone, right? But also, they're like, oh, he reminds me of Connor. Superboy? Does he really, though? I mean, he doesn't seem to have any... I haven't seen any strength yet. Connor's actually super smart, but, it's a hit and miss. I don't really see any resemblance here. This whole panel is hilarious because some other kid's like, hey, I need my running blades today. And Dick's like, isn't this home ec? Yes, it is. Why, yes, it is. So Dick walks in and catches this Red X, quote, quote, red-handed. You get it? Now, this could be anything. I think it's trying to make you think about the people who left recently. Matt left recently. What's her name? Alina, I think, left recently. Of course, there's always Brick, who's still suspicious. So you have 3 kids who could be on the radar. But what is he uploading or downloading? This could be somebody entirely random, too. You never know. So it's not Alina because she's grabbing her blades when they run by chasing him. What if it's multiple people? What if it's like Scream and you have like 2 killers trying to beat one person? Oh, I love this panel. You see that hose and you're like, oh yeah, that's going to be used for something. And then you get to see him do some of his little aerial flippies down the stairs. And then Donna's nearby and she's like, yeah, that hose is way too long for you to be doing that. Followed by a running joke with how he should be careful at his age. I do like running jokes. She was trying to tell him, her name. She goes by Bolt now. I like the name Bolt too. That is catchy. Good job, Cyborg. And also, this Red X character had enough knowledge of Nightwing to throw down his cape in a misdirection that actually worked. So it's someone who's smart enough to know that would work. In that case, it could be that Matt kid, or it's just somebody who's familiar enough with Nightwing, which would also make sense considering that it's his history. Enough to know what he would do in that situation. This panel's really cool because it gets us an inside look of the Titan's tower, like more closely about how each room is situated, the levels and whatnot. And I know they did have some like of the formations in the back of like the books in the 90s, but now that we're in the 2020s, we would kind of could use this updated information. So I think this is pretty cool. Side note, apparently Alenta is Australian. Is that what they're trying to imply here? I think they're also trying to set her up as one of the candidates, but it seems to me that she's more just of a troubled child and hasn't really had anybody to talk to about it yet. So also, we haven't got to see Raven or Beast Boy with their classes yet. I wonder what they do. They haven't really been involved at all. So Dick's strategy is, as I would assume, to mention it to the kids, and it might scare them into stopping it. Of course, I don't think that it'll be that easy, and neither does anyone else. Beast Boy here is actually showing his good side by saying that he doesn't like the idea of just lying to kids at all. So that's cool of him to actually bring that up. And Raven also mentions that it could also make things worse, which is probably the most likely scenario, because knowing kids, they're a bit unpredictable, and they're so immature that if you tell them something like this, they're likely to all take it as a joke and start doing it, and then you'll have 10 or 20 kids wearing this mask. Do we really need a special appearance by the Suicide Squad when we haven't even seen Raven or Beast Boy really teach their classes yet? I mean, just saying, this is a Titans book. Why are they trying to add in so many extra groups? Unless it's just basic advertising for their books again. Moving on to issue 3. Raven here seems to be having a premonition of like Red X's quote intention. They seem pretty epic on an epic scale, but at the same time, he could not even kill that girl. He straight up refused to do it, so I don't think if he can do that, he can't do something like this. So they're having a disagreement on how to handle this situation, and honestly, I have no idea either. If you can't catch him, you can't really do anything to him. All you can do is try to catch him when he shows up. They still have no idea who he is. They can guess all they want to, but without proof. But Donna's right. You can't ignore the kids and what all the help that they need because of this one situation that they don't even know what it's about. So, like comics do, they've taken a random turn into the Suicide Squad. And me, there's always this point for me when like the story just changes and they add in this random thing and becomes something else. I prefer that we stay on the track that we've already started. Whatever, we're here now. The regular Titans are on a mission to Markovia to rescue some refugees, and they're worried that wonder if the tower is safe enough. They're like, oh yeah, nobody can get in there. And yet here we are, we have the Suicide Squad working with Red X for some reason. It's just funny to me how these kids have like their own, teen drama. Cracks me up. It's none of your business. So apparently whatever's going on with Alenta, you can only find out if you've read Suicide Squad number 3, which I'm not going to. I'm not interested in it. I have no idea what that's supposed to mean. Oh, Black Canary shirt. Never get tired of those. I was right to begin with. This character is from Australia, but what is going on with these numbers? She said she got her speed, in the Speed Force from this paper she found. If she just remembers the numbers in the correct order, it gives her power. What? What is this about? Come on now. Are they just going to belittle the Flash's whole background story of getting struck by lightning and surviving? With, I found a piece of paper with some numbers on it. Oh, this part is awful though. She was so excited. She was the fastest person all of a sudden, so her parents used her to run packages for their business. She didn't know, but they were dealing in, illicit goods. And when they owed debts to somebody, they actually took off her legs as payment. Isn't that wild for a child? That's horrible. Oh, that's why it kept saying AW in her phone. She was hanging up on Amanda Waller, who apparently she owes her debt to saving her life for. Okay, well that makes sense now. And here, while he's getting them into the tower, Red X is like, oh, why don't you just kill Amanda Waller so she can't control you anymore? Like, bro, you don't think anybody's ever thought of that before? Like, oh, good idea. Why don't we just do that? So yeah, it's pretty proven that they're here for her because she's supposed to run when Amanda Waller goes calling, and she didn't. But at the same time, they're like, why does she want her? And they're like, oh, I don't know. It doesn't matter. I don't care. I'm just here to do my job. So I'm like, do the writers even know, or do we just need a reason for them to be attacked while the Titans were away? If anything, I would be more inclined to believe that they would leave and set up a test like this on purpose just to see how they would react and what they would do and put them in a real scenario. That would make more sense to me. So was he intentionally hired for the Suicide Squad? Is that what they were hinting at? I don't really get that either. He seems to be working rogue. So it breaks out because the students are actually alerted to them and they go down to help Alenta, which is perfect, right on time. And of course, they got to use the classic line, Titans together. Things kind of change when she's like, I want that girl. You can kill everybody else there if that's what it takes. And that's when Red X actually joins the other side. And he's like, hey, what are you doing? These are kids. You can't kill these kids. And to me, that's not something a villain would say. So he even actually tries to talk Peacemaker out of it. Like, hey, are you really going to let her pull stuff like this? But they're not listening to it, and they get out of there ASAP. So Crush is awesome here. You know, I know her father's Lobo, so she's already kind of have an established backstory. I think she's really cool in her reaction and her strength, and the Titans actually show up when they get the alert. Apparently she does have some daddy issues because she doesn't even call him dad, she calls him Lobo. She gets angry at the idea that they think that she might have killed somebody. She's like, oh, I'm not like him, and then she quits. So it's kind of funny because after they're back and they're like, oh, well, it's all right. Everybody's safe. Everybody's good. If the attack, everything's all right. And they're like, they're on this bridge about, who's Red X? Is he a good guy or is he a bad guy? And they're like, oh, I don't know, but our best detectives are on it right now. And then you cut to this panel. So issue 4, this panel is kind of hilarious. Miguel, I don't know who that is. And of course, yeah, Matt's up there. But where are they connected to Booster Gold? Why is Nightwing's ass up there? Like that picture of Beast Boy. And Mopey, Billy Batson, Red Hood, just because of the mask. One of Tubi, where it says to be, like his room, and it says, or not to be, LOL. That's pretty funny. Here, the kind of flashbacking where he's kind of monologuing, and he's talking about how, like, even when we first got on this boat, I kind of feel like somebody's standing out, but I just don't know who it is. I love how Diego tells this story through like a bored student just sketching on a notebook. And here he's showing Nightwing, and he's like, oh, yeah, he used to be Robin, and he used to be Red X. And he's like, oh, and I think he was Batman at 1 minute, but I can't prove it. Which is funny because of that whole Black Mirror thing where he was Batman for a while. Good cop, bad cop. I like that. They're going around interrogating people who they suspect might be Red X. So they're kind of onto what I was thinking to start with, that Matt was super sus. And I love this list that they have for him. Price equals X amount of dollars. Evil chess. And he wasn't there at the incursion. Now that is suspicious, though it was so chaotic. Can you really keep track of something like that? So they turned out unable to interrogate Matt because his powers are off the chain somehow, even though we've never seen them. I'm curious to find out what his abilities are. But then they turn their attention towards Brick, who I actually kind of forgot about till they just brought it up again. And this is kind of hilarious because, you know, she's just like determined. It's not him. I think so too. He just seems to have trouble figuring out his powers and controlling them. Which I think it's nice that more so than teaching them to be heroes, they're actually just mentoring a bunch of kids and helping them through their life. So that's pretty cool. And then they cut to a shot of Billy Batson just screaming on the roof, even though they don't know what he's saying, which is so funny. He's clearly shouting Shazam, trying to get it to work. And they're like, what's he doing? What's going on? And then the camera cuts off, which apparently was it lightning? It was lightning. Raven and Beast Boy are like, oh, it's okay. Come on, you can work on it. And then he's like, yeah, I guess so. Maybe I could just be a vigilante and wear a mask. So are they making him sus on purpose? Why would you say that? It's clearly not Billy, though. I'm like 100% sure it's not him. So they fail to get a lead on Billy, too, when he's shut out by his roommate. I have a bit of respect for these kids. They're trying really hard to investigate, and it's just that there's really nothing to go on. If there was more leads or whatnot, they could actually probably figure it out. Donna's kind of right, though. It is funny that his name is Brick, and his EMP powers tend to brick electronics. That is funny. Oh, so this part is kind of touching. He's got his friends, and he feels kind of bad. He's like, oh, we have all these people, and we're still no closer to figuring out who it is. I'm so stupid, because Batman would know already. He'd figure it out. And they're like, oh, come on. Batman's had some tough cases, too. Court of Owls. And I like how they throw the Long Halloween in there. He didn't really solve that one. Not really. Of course he did. It was Calendar Man. The fact that they're like, oh, well, Batman, he wouldn't give up. He'd keep working, and that's what we should do. And I like that the fact that they're still inspiring these kids, even without even being there, that actually shows that what they're doing is working. So rightfully so, Donna comes and shuts it down. Like, hey, y'all need to stop this. This guy's dangerous. We don't know what's going on. Just let us handle it. And then they run into Billy Batson again, and now they're like, oh, well, we're pretty sure it's him. Except the way they come about this is they're talking to him outside his room. He's looking kind of sus, yeah. And then he's like, oh, well. And he goes back in his room, and they immediately turn and look into it, and he's there in fully dressed Red X. I don't know about you, but like there's no way he had enough time to do this. I don't know where Billy's at yet. This is clearly cannot be him. On to issue 5. This is hilarious too, because the kid's like, oh, I love it here. There's so many funny stuff going on, but I always feel safe because Batman's around. And then he runs and he bumps into Nightwing. So Nightwing actually took him back to the orphanage, and it turned out that he jumped over the fence and escaped it, like over, I forgot how tall it was, 6 meters, something like that. They have this harsh light upon them. Nightwing looks kind of cold here too. When I say he comes off as like a little bit cold, I mean from the kid's point of view. They kind of disrespect him. Like even as a child, they're like, oh well, he's just a cheap copy, or even Nightwing don't know everything and so on, even though he's their teacher. It's because I think he drops them back off. He drops them back off at the orphanage where they're supposed to be taken care of. And you would think that this is their job, right? So you leave them here. They're supposed to be taken care of. You think you're doing a good thing. And then when you have stuff like this, see, that's the odd part. These kids almost see him as a bad guy because he's dropped them off at the place that they're mistreating them. But you would think that it would be safe to leave your kids with an official institution that they're made to do this. Administrators don't seem to care. They're like, oh, there's not even any beds. You'll have to sleep on the floor tonight. Watch out, these guys over here look kind of mean. We're getting some insight into Diego's backstory. So I wonder what happened to get his appearance, the way it is. And he's kind of talking to his other buddies in the orphanage, and he's kind of pissed because he's like, oh, well, Nightwing interrupted me in this joke about, like, what's up with him anyway? Bloodhaven or Gotham? Pick a lane. And then they're just, like, fawning over Batman. He's so cool. He could solve this case. Seriously? Same, though. What would Batman do? WWBD. So clearly they were onto something because they already suspected the headmaster of being into something shady, even though they couldn't prove it. And when he walks in with a doctor, apparently, and he's like, shh, be quiet, Nightwing might still be around to hear us. So whatever it is must not be anything good if he's worried about being overheard. And he mentions one of the kids for the doctor, I'm guessing some kind of experiment. And for some reason, Diego's plan is to run out and just make them assume that he's actually Lucas, the one that the doctor wants to take. So he wants him to take him in his place. Okay, so we find out that he is actually experimenting on kids with the Dr. Langstrom's serum, which is the man bat. So that would explain his batish appearance. This whole issue seems to be centered around Diego and the whole Brat Pack, their origins in the orphanage. And of course, Nightwing shows up, saves the day, and it turns out Diego did get infected with the serum. Haha, Nightwing carries a compact. He seems like somebody who would carry a compact. But also, Diego seems to be handling it really well. Like, he likes this new look that he's got, and he wants to even keep it, he says. He likes the fangs, and he can't wait to get his wings. I mean, if there's no actual backlash to it, then it can't hurt, right? So he starts going by the name of Chupacabra. I like it. They seem to fall on a lot of references to other comics here, or like future ones. Because here he's like, oh, do you even have a dog? Why do you have a dog whistle? And he's like, no, but I could one day, which he actually does having a dog. Also, Nightwing makes a good point here. He's like, oh, and we also found the files you left, the proof of the child trafficking going on in this orphanage because you left them for Jim Gordon. And the kids are like, oh, cool, did you give it to Batman? And he's like, well, Batman would have given it to Jim Gordon, who is arresting them right now. And I think people forget that they actually, I mean, I don't want to sound, cringy or whatever, but the cops are actually the real heroes. So Nightwing takes them in to the tower, but then you cut back and Red X is listening to this backstory. Why? They're just like sitting here chilling and telling him. After hearing what they said, he is actually like, you know what, I like you guys. And he reveals himself, so he shows them who he is because he wants them on his side. I'm wondering if actually he just wants them off his case to stop investigating. And they said, I want you on my team, not his. And for some reason, he's like really salty about this. It sounds almost like something Jason would say to Batman. You don't even know what you're training for. You're just making a bunch of soldiers in your little war. So I'm thinking of somebody who has a personal investment or something that went wrong. So they ended by making it through the end of their first semester or whatever you call it. Now they're on summer break, so that's pretty cool. There's a part with like Suicide Squad, or it explains. I don't want to read that. I don't feel like reading it, so I'm skipping it. And the last part is the yearbook. This is really fun. So it's funny because they do they credit the actual characters for the photographs and the articles. And then of course all those signatures, which is really cute. You have Stitch here talking about fighting Faust. And I know Stitch is a doll, but like they drew this character on purpose. And I feel almost like it was just so they could really force this idea of gender inclusion thing that people are doing lately. I didn't mention it before because I know it's a salty topic, but the more I see it, the saltier I get. Because this is ridiculous. Can you please like keep your politics out of my comic books? I don't want to read about real life opinions. I want to read about entertainment. I want to read about these characters that I love and these stories. I don't want to read about the writer's personal opinions. So can we please keep that out? I heard it only gets worse in the next volume. Like this whole interaction right here, this whole comment is ridiculous. Not only that, but the fact that children are reading comic books. Since comic books are aimed towards general children audience, children are subjected to these opinions early on before they might even be ready for these kind of topics. That's what really makes me angry. You're writing about heroes for children, and yet you're taking advantage of the fact that your children audience is the most vulnerable. So I'm just going to gloss over this part because I don't want to get angry. Legit though, my opinion on this don't even matter. The fact is, this whole topic doesn't need to be, the politics don't need to be in any comic books at all. So what's important is that this book seems to be more about the students, these new characters. Extra part is, I guess, is about Stitch's backstory because it's even called The Stitch in Time. So all of these students seem to almost have a direct connection to a famous person. Whether, Greg and Grodd, Crush and Lobo, so on. Stitch is apparently connected to Dr. Fate. And that somewhat bothers me that all of these kids are connected to somebody. Like Nightwing said, a lot of people applied and only a few got in. And the fact that there are so many that are connected to heroes already make me wonder if they were kind of biased in picking people who were directly related to them. And probably not, but it comes off that way if you think about it really hard. That the only people who actually made it in were people with direct connections to somebody that already exists. And here we have a little bit about each of the instructors and what they're good at. And again, another dedication to Roy, which is nice. It mentions him as an outsider. Then you flip the page and this happens. So that escalated. And after a whole volume, we finally get some content with Beast Boy and Raven. Apparently they're on a date and they're dating now, which I never know if they are or not, because sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. But apparently they are in this verse. So. And she's worried because she had another vision. It seems like nobody's taking them seriously. And I didn't know this before, but apparently Raven is strong enough to stop time. This has been mentioned that she does it to help the students that are in need. And now she did it here again just to get a dance with Beast Boy. It's nice to see her wearing something not as introverted and closed off or withdrawn. She's come out a little more. She's got her hair down. She's got her jeans on. I mean, yeah, girl. The superlatives are cool, and so are the photos, except I'm just kind of bothered that they're just actual pictures taken right out of the panels. Like, for instance, if there was Donna fighting Brick, there was no one else there to take that so-called picture. So it would have been nice to just get a few more original drawings. So then we jump to another story where Matt's saving somebody. They compare him to Superboy. That might be why they mentioned Connor earlier, because he actually is somehow directly connected, which is another student who's got a direct connection to somebody. I'm not a fan of this art style. It's kind of too cartoony. And here we have this woman saying, "Oh my God, Richard, call 911." I'm wondering why they didn't pick any other name, since we already have a main character whose name is Richard. Why would you pick another random name and use the same one as somebody who already exists? That's kind of confusing. Oh wait, is Dick in there? But no, it's just some random guy. And Matt seems kind of out of character in it. It's cute. I mean, and we have a few more mock-ups, which is still kind of funny. And then another story where yet another orphanage caretaker is evil. What is with that? Why are there so many? It's something about Black Mask and threatening him to take care of those kids. Or he says he's going to do this. And to me, that seems a little bit inappropriate, don't you think? Oh, and what do you know? It's Red X himself. He's nimble enough to flip around and evade bullets. Is this somebody related to, like, the League of Shadows? And he says, "I saw you on TV with the Titans as Robin," which is funny because, it's the TV show. And he's like, "No, I took this mask." Oh, so we see here that he was the one who actually gave it to the kid in the beginning. Okay, we still don't know who he is, though. Anyway, that's it for the Teen Titans Academy Volume 1. I very much would like to read Volume 2 just because I'm invested in finding out who Red X is. I do wish that the Titans had more screen time, especially with them teaching classes, because I think that part's really fun. And I like to see them interact with the kids, be all awkward and very mentor-like. Their advice is really good. I was not happy that a few of them did not get that much screen time, mainly Raven and Beast Boy. Like, when I picked up this book, I thought it was going to be mostly about the Titans stepping into these roles as teachers. And it was going to be really cute and awkward. And in the beginning, it seemed like it was headed that way, with the awkward speech and the jokes over who's teaching what. They introduced all these new characters, and I don't think there's just enough room in this to actually focus on each character like that. Because when you read a Titans book, you want to read about the Titans, right? Instead, we're getting all this backstory about all these random new characters, and that they're kind of just, shoehorning them into other characters' stories that already exist. They're all connected or related to another one in some way. They're just lesser versions of it. And it doesn't make it seem as random as it should be. For instance, I expected more of, I don't know how familiar y'all are with Japanese dramas, but there's a few that come to mind really good when I think about this. There's an old one called Gokusen, where this teacher has to teach a class of a bunch of bad students, delinquents. And at first they completely disrespect her, but then as the show goes on, they bond together, and they actually become really, really close to the point where they always have each other's backs, and they defend each other, and they really start, she mentors them like they needed to be, and gets them graduated. So I thought it was going to be something like that. There's another really old one called Yoiko no Mikata, where a guy reluctantly has to become a preschool teacher because he needs extra money. And at first he thinks it's stupid, he don't want to do it. But then he just realizes how much he really enjoys teaching, and these kids, they need help, they feel lonely, or they have some kind of problem. Point two, where he generally starts to care about these kids in a way that he wants to be their teacher. Like at the end with the graduation, the kids graduated preschool. He was crying so hard. I was crying so hard because it was super sad, but you're so proud of them at the same time. So that's what I thought it was going to be like. That you could see how the Titans actually become more into their roles as teachers, especially since they were mentored themselves. They could use that as a connection, especially since all of their mentorships were kind of strained at the point as to why they joined the Titans to begin with. They wanted to break free a little bit of their mentors. But in doing this, they could have maybe got an inside look into how their mentors were thinking. And maybe I understand them a little better now because I really care for these kids and their futures. Yeah, but instead it just seems like a bunch of random stories about new characters, almost like if you asked somebody to create an original character that would be in a Teen Titans. Then you'd get all these characters. Also the plot, like I said, I like the teaching part of it, but there's these random parts that just seem to come out of nowhere, as I mentioned before. Like when the Suicide Squad attacked, there was absolutely no need for that. It looked like they needed to have an action part, or they needed to make some drama in the story, because it just happened to happen at the same time that they left. Come on. The Nightwing, randomly having to leave to Bloodhaven, and then them getting upset about it. Okay, that I expected him to be gone, and then that actually affects something, and then it turns out there was no reason for him to say that because he didn't even leave. He was there in the story from there on. So why did he say that? He didn't actually leave. It was just to make some kind of plot. I don't know. But I do enjoy when they do touch on each character's background and history. It is very complex, and it goes on for a while. It's not just a random thing. Alenta's was truly tragic. And Diego becoming a little man bat, in the fact that he could actually enjoy that, I think that's great. So there are some good things about it, but there are just some other things that I wish I saw more of. The best part, in my opinion, is actually the who is Red X part. It almost feels like a whodunit, except it's more of a who is it. They're giving you these clues, and you're trying to figure it out as you read, and they're pointing out obvious suspects or making people suspicious on purpose, throw you off. And it's actually fun trying to unravel that mystery while everybody else is trying to do it, especially since the Titans don't know, so they don't just tell you the answer. It was so frustrating, though, when Volume 1 ended and we still don't know. I guess that means I'll have to buy Volume 2, huh? I just hope when he is revealed that there's some kind of good reason for it. It's not some edgy teen story. I don't think having, Suicide Squad in this book was necessary, but I would like to read the second one. because I feel like once you get the origin stories out of the way, then you can move forward with the plot some more. And we still have no idea what Raven's premonition is about. So that's all I have. I just wanted to share my thoughts as I was reading it. And until next time,